As we enter the final week of the first quarter of the season, we find ourselves sitting at 2-1. The changes have been made on defense, our offense continues to roll, and we face our biggest opponent yet. The autumn wind blows us into Baltimore. Raiders at Ravens is our topic of the week, and this is the Will to Win. All right, folks, welcome to the broadcast. Tonight's broadcast is going to be broken up into 4 segments. In segment number 1, Pete sits down with Stephen Michaels from the Raiders Daily from a remote location. In segment number 2, I welcome back Ricky Widmer from the Most Valuable Podcast. In segment number 3, Pete takes a look at some key notes for Derek Carr. And in segment number 4, we wrap up the show with our Pick'em segment. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at last week's highlights.
Looks that pump comes back, seam route right, and it is caught. Jack Miller, touchdown! Raiders! It is caught for a first down by Darius Hayward-Bay. 57 yards from second base. Kondo will snap, Beckler hold. He's got it away. He's got the accuracy, and it's good! Janikowski from 57. Janikowski back. It's picked up. A seam route. He may go 30, 20, 10, 5, touchdown! Raiders!
Wow, what an amazing game. The autumn wind was definitely able to blow the dark cloud that hung over this defense away. Now we just hope going into Baltimore, we can continue to build upon the success that we saw last week with this defense. All right, let's go ahead and take a listen to Pete's interview with Stephen Michaels from the Raider Daily that was recorded earlier this week from a remote location. Let's take a listen.
All right, joining me on the line, I believe on the road, is Stephen Michaels. Stephen Michaels, are you there?
Yes, I am. What's up, buddy?
All right, we appreciate you coming on. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Stephen Michaels, Raiders Daily, a wonderful, wonderful podcast that's out there, another piece of the Raider Nation that delivers every single time. Stephen Michaels, we appreciate you joining the show. We appreciate you coming on the Will to Win. Couple of questions for you. Once again, we like to get outside of the box. We like to ask people what they think, not just our opinions, but other people's opinions as well. 3 weeks into the season, Stephen, can the Raiders stop the run? Is there any way that this Raider football team is going to consistently, moving forward with the adjustments on defense, is there any way that this team can stop the run?
Well, I wouldn't hit the panic button just yet. We're only 3 games into the season. But without Ben Heaney, the defense certainly looks better. Corey James, we don't know yet.
Sorry.
I think we're going to see a lot more against Baltimore, see if he can follow his assignments properly. That was the problem with Ben Heaney, just not hitting the right gaps and just, quite frankly, just not getting to a ball on time. So, I don't know. I think we have to wait to see how Corey James does going forward.
Now, you follow this football team. Obviously, you're on the road right now in Baltimore. You're going to see this team play against a different type of offense that we've played in the first couple of weeks. I think maybe potentially Atlanta may be as close of a style of football as Baltimore is going to pose to us. But I think that that's probably even really not the right thing, due to the fact that Shanahan has got a lot more rollouts and things like that. Do you think that Khalil Mack is going to be able in some way to get some, or Bruce, or whoever it is, to get some pressure this week against this type of football team?
Oh, boy, that's a tough one. Khalil Mack, I feel bad for him because we know how good he is. But he's having a tough time, but it's not really his fault. The whole defensive line has not really been impressive. It's going to be a tough task for Khalil Mack to get after Joe Flacco. We know he can, he's not a statue in the pocket. But I really like the Raiders' chances in this game. I know the Ravens are undefeated, but the Raiders' offense is playing at a very high level right now. I don't think the Ravens' defense are going to be able to stop the Raiders for all 4 quarters.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree with you 100%. I think the offense obviously is the strength of this football team. But let's take a look. Will the free agents on defense, do you think that they're going to be able to pan out? We had, they came in, they played, they made some big plays. And once again, the much maligned Reggie McKenzie signings, Sean Smith, Bruce Irvin, Reggie Nelson, they all made plays in this particular game. But we had a guy on named Louis T, who also has a podcast on and or a YouTube channel on, and he has a banana in the tailpipe. And what he says is, look, if you show me something 1 week and it doesn't match what you show me week in and week out, it's the banana in the tailpipe. It's something I'm not going to fall for. In your opinion, Stephen Michaels, these guys on defense, are they going to be able to earn their paychecks? And again, we're talking about Irvin, we're talking about Smith, we're talking about Nelson, and all the free agents that were brought in defensively. Will they earn their paychecks in the next couple of coming weeks?
I don't know about Sean Smith. I think it was a big confidence booster that he got an interception last week. But overall, I mean, I look at the game film, and the guy is just getting burned every single time. Bruce Irvin, I think, has been the biggest disappointment of all the free agency. I thought, you remember when we had the whole off-season hype, the Slash brothers? Remember all that? With, he was supposed to come in and help Khalil Mack. The guy's not helping anyone. He's been a complete nightmare. I don't understand why the guy's even on the football field. I know he had one good play last week when he made the fumble off Mariota there, but outside of that, when do you ever hear his name being called? I don't. He's not there. But Reggie Nelson, I think Reggie Nelson is going to get better. The more time he gets to play with Carlos Joseph, the better. Those guys build a chemistry, and I think those guys are going to be really good. I think Reggie Nelson will be just fine. But as far as Bruce Irvin and Sean Smith go, there's still a mystery. But Sean Smith has been just downright terrible. There's no other way to describe it. It's not good.
Yeah, it's been a rough couple of weeks. What about the kid? What about Carl Joseph? What are your thoughts now 3 weeks in? Again, we got to see him a little bit in the preseason. We saw that he was a little bit over aggressive, got sucked into some plays, and that obviously prevents you from making plays. I've been on record saying that this kid is out of position. What are your thoughts on Carl Joseph at this point?
Well, we only really got to see him in one game, and they were playing against the Tennessee Titans, and there was no Walker out there. You know, he didn't play. So I don't know. We didn't get to see a lot of Carl Joseph, but I'm hoping he's got to be better than Keith McGill, right? So that's the hope there. If he can even be a little bit better than Keith McGill, the Raiders will be okay, because that defense, they need help. They did play better last week. I think Carlos Joseph is going to be just fine going forward. I did see a few bad plays out of him, but I also did see a guy that was running towards the football, a guy that did look lost a few plays, but, you know, he does hit hard, and he is good on special teams too, by the way, which kind of goes unnoticed. But he is good on special teams, and I think he'll be fine going forward with Reggie Nelson, though. I think that.
Yeah, and it's a good segue. I mean, you talk about young players. Let's take a step. Let's tiptoe from the offense. From the defense to the offense. Derek Carr. There's a lot of talk right now. He's this, he's that. What are your opinions 3 weeks in? Do you see any type of progression from Derek Carr? Do you see that he's checking down too much? Do you see that he's trying to take too many shots deep? What are your thoughts in terms of his leadership ability? We did a show earlier today where we talked about that. I'm a big Derek Carr fan myself, so I'm not gonna. So once again, I'm gonna ask you for your opinion. But what's your thought process seeing Derek Carr come in a few years ago, seeing Derek Carr last year, and then seeing Derek Carr this year? Do you see a progression? Do you see a check down Molly type guy? Do you see an Aaron Rodgers potentially in the future? What are your thoughts on Derek Carr?
I think Derek Carr is an elite quarterback. I think he's a top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL this year. His numbers would have been a lot higher last week if his receivers didn't drop those balls. You got to remember, he had 5 drops, crucial drops too. So I think Derek Carr is a fantastic quarterback. I don't think when he can push the ball down the field, he will. But he can only do what the defense gives him. And the last couple of weeks, they've been playing really high and not letting Carr, hit the deep ball. But he's going to be just fine. I mean, the guy, you put on the film, you look at the guy, I mean, the guy has command of that offense, something that he has not had in the previous couple of years. Now he's in control. That's why the Raiders are scoring so many points. That's why they're number 1 offense in football. This guy has a bright future. I think in another year or two, you're going to see Derek Carr as an Aaron Rodgers or a guy like that, definitely.
Now, again, I want to stay for a second. I want to talk about Khalil Mack, but I'm interested in getting your opinion on this. This offensive line, when injuries start to happen, generally speaking, offensive lines get decimated. You start losing left tackles, right tackles, centers. Everybody starts getting rotated out. You start moving people around, and it becomes a mess. You've seen it in San Diego. You've seen it on a few different teams where it starts to derail what the team is trying to do. I've seen this offensive line, which was touted on paper as being one of the best offensive lines. Yeah, I get it. Not going to buy into it. But I have seen them shift around. I've seen Menelik Watson go out. I've seen a guy like Vidal Alexander come in, play his ass off. And don't get me wrong, I'm the first person to say he will not do that against Ware. He's not going to do it against Taba Ali. He's not going to play as well as he played against Tennessee, against a lot of the competition that we have in this division. But have you ever seen something like this where an offensive line is able to shift around, move players out of position, and still protect a quarterback who's only been sacked? Now again, he's been sacked twice, but one of them was a covered sack where he ran out of bounds before the line of scrimmage.
The offensive line has been fantastic. Mike Tice he's a genius, this guy. He can plug anyone in there and they do their job. And not only for the pass game, but the run game too. I mean, they're opening up holes for DeAndre Washington and Jalen Richard, all those guys. This offensive line, it doesn't matter who they put in there. Like you said, Al Alexander. I mean, that's a guy I wouldn't trust going up against the Broncos, but still, I mean, he goes in there and he does his job. I don't know how they do it, to be honest with you. I mean, Mike Tice, like I said, the guy is an offensive line guru. He's a genius at what he does.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's switch gears because, again, the offensive line and the defensive line are going to be what drives your football team. This defensive line, for whatever reason, is just not able to generate pressure. They're not able to stop the run. They're not able to fit their gaps. You've got Ken Norton Jr., you've got Jack Del Rio, you've got Sensuri that again, also who took Khalil Mack from being a so-so player into potentially a MVP type of guy. Obviously, it's not an MVP type of season for him at this point. Is, in your opinion, the loss of Mario Edwards Jr., is that some part of the reason why Khalil Mack is just not gaining or not getting any type of pressure?
Yeah, I think that has a big reason to do with it. The guy just, and it's also Khalil Mack. We just can't blame other people. He's not even winning when he's going one-on-one with his defenders. He's just not shedding the blocks. He's not getting after the quarterback. It is, I guess it's too early to panic, but let me ask you something. Do you think Ken Norton Jr. were calling the plays last week? Or do you think Jack Del Rio?
My thought process, and this has been something that we've talked about, it gets bandied around. It's really a hallucination at this point because I have no freaking idea, right? Obviously, we don't know who's making the calls, what they're doing. Jack Del Rio gave us a little bit of an insight into, hey, we're all calling the plays. And that, to me, is a recipe for disaster. Too many chiefs, obviously, always. You're not going to get the water that you need. You're not going to get the skins that you need. You're not going to get the food that you need if all you have is a bunch of chiefs talking about how they're going to do certain things. I think that this defensive football team, I think Jack Del Rio said, look, we will remake this defense in the form of what you had in Seattle. I think they tried it. They're just not getting what's going on. And I truly believe this. Once again, I'm not talking badly about Ken Norton Jr. because I would not want to do something like that. But I believe the game is just a little bit too fast. I believe that the personnel is not quite up to snuff. And if you take those two things and you combine them together, you're going to have a problem. Your thoughts?
Yeah, you're a very smart man, and you're correct. Ken Norton Jr., listen, I'm always honest, so it's okay. He's not ready to be a defensive coordinator. He's way over his head. I think Jack Del Rio was pretty much calling the plays last week. They don't want to say that publicly, but I think that's what happened here. The defense just looked a little bit better last week. Now, I know they're playing against the Titans and all that, but they just seemed – Jack Del Rio just seemed like, on the sidelines at least, that he had more command. And I'm sorry. I don't think this whole Seattle defense works with the players the Raiders have. I just don't see it. I also think a guy like Bruce Irvin, he got limited time in Seattle for a reason. So did Malcolm Smith. I don't think those guys, especially Malcolm Smith, is not a starter. So, yeah, I just don't think Ken Norton Jr. is ready to be a defensive coordinator. And that's just my opinion. I just don't. You think about that. The guy was a linebacker coach, right? And all of a sudden, boom, you throw him in. He's running your defense. And Jack Del Rio, he has a lot of pride when it comes to defense, right? So he's not going to sit there and watch someone else take over his defense, and his defense be the laughingstock of the NFL. There's no way he's going to sit back and be comfortable with that. And he gave clues, after the game against Atlanta, and then Ken Norton Jr. saying that everyone has a hand, it's a collective effort. No. That's not how it works. So, yeah, I think Jack Del Rio has a lot more say and a lot more pull right now.
Yeah, and, if you take a look at the adjustments that they made, I mean, they went to a straight youth movement. They didn't go to the guys that they brought in through free agency. I don't know if that's a knock on, hey, let's do it the way that the Seahawks did it. Let's go out and get Seahawk linebackers. Let's go out and get a cornerback that's like, Richard Sherman. Let's go out and do this. Let's go out and do that. I think the fact of the matter is, just like last year, Jack came in and said, you know what, we got to change it. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Let's go back to the basics. Now, again, let's jump over to the offensive side of the ball. When you look at this division, you look at a team like Denver, okay? I don't think anybody thought they were going to be 3-0 at this particular point. You look at a team like Kansas City. I keep saying they're not sexy. They just keep on doing their job, and that's a dangerous opponent. You look at a team like San Diego, once again, Phillip Rivers is doing it all by himself. They're a dangerous football team. What is your thoughts on the state of the AFC West? I mean, do you believe that the Denver Broncos are the front runners? Where do you put the Raiders? I mean, what are your thoughts in this Wild Wild West?
All right, so before the season started, oh, God, it's so embarrassing. I was on a Denver FM radio show, Mile High Sports Radio. And I went on there and I said the Denver Broncos would go 8-8. They will fail in 2016. Now I look like a complete jerk, obviously, an idiot. I wasn't expecting the Broncos to be this good. I just thought they lost too many key players on defense. But they're really good, obviously. Now, as far as the Chiefs go, I really don't buy into them. I think they will win like 6 or 7 in a row, but just like the last couple of seasons, they always crumble in the end. And I think they're going to be good. I just think the Raiders are better. The Chargers, I dismiss them. I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon. It's going to be a battle between, I think, at the end of the day, when we're at week 14, 15, we're going to be talking about the Raiders and the Broncos. That's why when the Raiders go up against the Broncos on Sunday Night Football, that's going to be a huge game. The Raiders got to win these AFC West games. They got to. There's no doubt about it. They have to, because the Broncos are very good. And the Chiefs, they're going to be there. You know what I mean? They're going to be around. So they got to make sure they take care of business. They got to win those AFC West games. But as far as the state of it, I think the Raiders are still up there. I picked them to win the division at 10-6. I don't know if that's going to happen, but yeah, I think the Raiders, they have a chance, but the Broncos are very, very good right now.
Okay, so again, that's going to lead me into the next question. If you take a look at this offensive line, in your opinion, do you think Menelik Watson can play for 16 games? There's been a lot of talk. There's been a lot of opinions that have been, kind of thrown out there. This is an injury-prone guy. He's this, he's that. Do you think it's that big of a deal since the Raiders can slide somebody in there so easily? What are your thoughts on Menelik Watson as a player, number one? And do you think that if he continues to struggle, have problems? He put out a couple of really weird tweets. I'm around weird people. I'm around, energy vampires, whatever it is. Did you get a chance? We know that you cover the breaking news. We know that you are fantastic about coming out with stuff that's happening, up to the minute. What were your thoughts on that? I mean, was that kind of like weird, or am I just kind of tripping on that?
No, that's very weird. And as far as Watson goes, it's one of those things where, listen, Austin Howard came in last season, and I think he did a pretty damn good job. The Raiders' offensive line, I think they were ranked like first by Pro Football Focus last season. So I don't understand Austin Howard losing his job in the first place.
Like, I don't understand that, because he came in, he played pretty damn good, and then Watson comes back from injury, and it's like, okay, now I get the job, but this guy can't stay healthy. He's constantly something going on with this guy who's injured. So, I don't know. If I had a gamble on this guy to make it through the year, I would not take that bet. Austin Howard, on the other hand, he has to get healthy too. Both of those guys are banged up. But I think Austin Howard is a perfect guy to replace him. I think he's weird, first of all. Watson is very weird. I probably shouldn't be saying this, but he's strange.
Well, he is from England. So.
Yeah, he's really weird. There's no other way to describe it. He's really weird, and I just don't trust him to stay healthy. So that's my thoughts about it. I would, he's good, and, he's good, but he just doesn't stay healthy. It's almost every game when you see him in there, it's almost like he's going to go down with an injury.
Yeah, it's a very strange thing, and I'm glad you brought up that point. I mean, I thought maybe it was myself. I was looking at the tweets, and I was just like, why are you tweeting out something like that? It's just kind of like it gives us a little bit too much of a look into what's going on in the toolbox inside. And to me, the toolbox has way too many pipe wrenches, not enough nails, no hammer. It's just the wrong type of mentality for this type of football team. I mean, what do you mean? Oh, hanging out with the wrong people, wrong type of energy, this, and that. It's like, look, man, you've got the start. You can go in there and you can do some really, really good things. Let's see what you have on the field. Let's not make it about your weird tweets, like at the end of the day. All right. Now, the last question that I've got for you. Oh, go ahead, brother.
I was going to say, I mean, he's a good player. He is weird, but there are a few players on that team that are very weird. He hates me, but, that's a really weird situation. He sends me, I probably shouldn't get into this, but he blocked me on Twitter, and I'm too negative for Ben Heaney. I don't know why. All I did is post stats, but yeah, it's just, I don't know. The whole Twitter thing with NFL players and them talking to you, the whole thing is weird, in my opinion. Back in the day, you don't have contact with those guys. You know what I mean? You just watch them on the field, and that's it. Now it's like you say something about them, they come to you. It's very strange.
All right. So I think that's going to wrap it up for us here, man. Once again, Stephen Michaels, appreciate you coming in. Raiders Daily, everybody out there, like he said, go find it, mine it. Go out there. You guys are going to have to do something for it. Go out there and look for it, man. There's good information out there. Go ahead.
Just go on Twitter. Type in the Raiders Daily. I'm right there.
Go on Twitter. Yep, go on Twitter. Go do whatever you have to do. There's good information out there. We try to bring it to you every day. And, so we appreciate you being on. And, once again, man, good deal, bro. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and end our show with this, man. Win, lose, or tie. Raider Nation, no matter what our differences are, no matter what our affiliations are, no matter if we vote for Hillary or we vote for Trump, win, lose, or tie, Raider Nation, until we die. Thank you.
All right, Raider Nation, at this time, I'd like to welcome back to the Will to Win broadcast, Ricky Widmer from the Most Valuable podcast. What's going on, Rick?
Nothing much. Just chilling here on a We're recording this on a Wednesday, and can't wait to get Week 4 action going in the NFL this week.
Absolutely. Things have picked up since the last time that we talked. So we just really appreciate you coming back on to the Will to Win, brother.
Oh, no problem. Thank you guys for having me.
All right, man. So let's get into this, huh? The Raiders, Jack Del Rio in particular, really made a lot of changes to this team, especially to the defense. We started a ton of rookies. We had guys like Latham, Ward, Carl Joseph, Corey James, guys like Calhoun. We really had a ton of rookies on the field. What can you give us from an outside looking in of Jack Del Rio making those kind of decisions this last week?
Yes, you went with a kind of younger squad out there. The one that, I mentioned him the last time I was on Will to Win, and I love him mainly because I'm going to be honest. I have the Illinois bias for Jihad Ward. I want to see him do great things in the NFL, but to me, last week was the week to do that. You had Marcus Mariota, who I know Mark Weber on Most Valuable Podcast is one of the guys who's like, you know what, he's not the guy who's developed quite nicely like a Jameis Winston has. So you can kind of throw out these younger defensive players going up against the younger kind of quarterback and kind of get them used to that NFL game speed. And it worked because they forced 3 turnovers and 2 picks and a fumble just from Mariota alone.
You know, those 3 turnovers came from those 3 key free agents that we brought in. What can you tell us about how you feel about Reggie McKenzie's free agent experience this year and how the Raider Nation should feel about it?
Well, it's kind of a boost to this Raider defense because the one thing, I look at the division, and if you look at the division that you're in, every single team has a good defense. Denver, they're at the top. They have a phenomenal defense. You look at KC, they have a phenomenal defense. The Chargers this year, they've been adding pieces to their defense to make sure that they kind of keep the pace. And with the Raiders, adding Reggie on was kind of, hey, you know what, we need to strengthen the defense because it kind of seems like in order to win in the AFC West, you got to have that stout defense.
And on that note, Denver's obviously doing really well this year defensively. Again, they got players like DeMarco Ware, Von Miller. What have you seen this year from Khalil Mack? I know a lot of people in the Raider Nation are concerned that his numbers ain't showing up thus far, but he had a slow start last year too. What is your thoughts on Khalil Mack this season?
Well, I'm kind of going to relate it over to the NFC East and with a totally different position than Khalil Mack. If you look at Kirk Cousins, we're kind of having the same discussion there with Kirk. And it's like, you know what? He has all this big money. Why is he starting slow? Well, for Khalil Mack, it doesn't have to deal with the money. It's just the expectations from being a I'm going to say a veteran in this system, being that kind of older presence, even though he's still younger compared to the free agent pickups that you're picking up each and every year. It's just, I think the expectation from Raider Nation is you guys expect a lot from your players, especially on defense. And Khalil Mack, when he was drafted, he was a player that you guys said, hey, you know what? This guy is going to be the leader of our defense one day. And when you play that middle linebacker position, you got to be that leader. It's kind of like the quarterback out there on defense. I look at guys like Brian Urlacher in the past, Ray Lewis in the past. Right now, Luke Kuechly, kind of like that field general out there, kind of telling guys where to go and being the go-to guy for a defense.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, Rick. I'm going to change gears a little bit and go on the offensive side of the ball. We've been talking rookies thus far, and what do you think about our 3 rookies, actually 4 last week? Obviously, our 2 starter running backs. We also had Washington and Richard, but we also started a rookie at right tackle in Vidal Alexander. What can you say about that, just about our offensive line or just rookies on the offensive side of the ball as a whole?
Well, the thing is that whenever you're starting a rookie on the offensive line, it's good. It's going to be tough, and I know fans are going to be like, "Oh, I'm kind of nervous." I get that just from being in the city of Chicago and being around Bears fans with how many rookies and new offensive linemen they've had to start over the years. But, if you can get solid play out of that offensive line, protecting Derek Carr is a must because he's obviously the go-to, and he's going to be the reason you guys score points. I was very pleased with Washington. I was kind of looking at like, whoa, at first I'm like, who's this Washington kid? Because usually when you look at Raider football, you look at that offense, you're looking for Murray. I mean, Richard was a guy who he had a breakout run and a good performance against the Saints, and it's kind of like if you could have Murray be the bell cow and then have these guys behind him, you can get fresh legs out there, and that'll help Derek Carr and the receivers, because the one thing I actually think that the Raiders kind of have to do a little bit more against the Ravens this week is run the football, because we saw last week the Jacksonville Jaguars against Baltimore. They tried to run the ball, but not really. I mean, you had Chris Ivory coming back, and he only had 14 yards on 12 carries. So if the Raiders can use Washington, Richard, and Murray, I think they can have a little bit more success in the run game using these young rookies.
So what can you tell us, Ricky, about your thoughts maybe about Reggie McKenzie? We talked a lot about him this week on the Will to Win Daily Show.
Mm-hmm.
Just because he had gotten a lot of slack from the Raider Nation, now that he got his new contract, and we've just been talking a lot about him this week. Offensively and defensively, with all these rookies, free agents, all these undrafted guys, our rookies are just really shining, from the draft. How do you see this team, young Raider team, moving into 2017, and even kind of impact they're having this year, and what kind of credit should Reggie McKenzie get?
Well, I always find it interesting. Whenever you have a young team, either offensively or defensively, you need those veterans to be a part of the system just to kind of guide the young kids along, per se. And I think that's where Reggie McKenzie's role has to be. You know what? He doesn't have to come in here and be the star-studded guy on the defensive side. I mean, we're expecting that from Khalil Mack. We just talked about a few moments ago. He's just got to come in and be that veteran presence, be that veteran leader on the defensive side of the football, because I go back to what Del Rio said after the Week 1 game when I was watching NFL Red Zone. They did the live locker room look-in after their win over the Saints, and I said it the last time I was on Will to Win. It kind of struck me when Del Rio goes, last year was when we learned to compete. This year we learned to win. And the way the Raiders are going to win games is defensively. I mean, I talked about the AFC West and the defenses you have in that division, but just think of the Raiders historically. When you think of the Raiders historically, I don't think of the offense. I think of the black hole. I think of that pounding, hard-nosed defense, just put the nose to the grind and get it done. And I think that's how the Raiders are going to win games this season. I think that's how they're going to win games in the future. I know coming into this season, and I'm still sticking by it, I think the Raiders can be a 10-win team this season, and I think they will get in on a wild card spot, and they have some – I think they can make a run in the playoffs. But if they don't, Raider fans can be excited for the future and excited for next year.
Absolutely. I know a lot of people in the Raider Nation are saying the same thing. There's a lot of optimism, a lot of excitement, a lot of hype moving forward. We're getting ready to wrap up the first quarter of the season. We're at 2-1 now. We have an opportunity to be 3-1. We're looking forward to this week. What is your prediction? Ravens are coming in. They got the number 2 defense. We're going up. They're going up against us, the number 2 offense. What is your thoughts for this week's matchup?
Well, the thing I look at when I was looking at the Ravens is, yes, their defense is good, but I kind of look at their offense and I go, they haven't scored a lot of points thus far this season. I mean, you look at it, 13 against Buffalo. The most points they've scored in a game is 25 in that comeback. They had to come back down 23 just to beat the, I'm going to say, lowly Browns. I know that's kind of a low shot to Cleveland because of their history overall as a franchise, but then against Jacksonville, you need only 19 points to win. So I think in this one that the Baltimore offense is not going to be enough. The defense may cause some trouble. They might cause Derek Carr to kind of throw some picks and get into trouble. But I think this Raider defense is going to buckle down, force the Ravens. They might stick around that average of, I'm going to say, like 19 points. But as long as this Raider offense can then get in the end zone, that's my big key for the Raiders on offense is you got to get in the end zone, because if the Ravens are only going to score like 19 points on you, all you got to do is outscore them. And I know that sounds so like, well, duh, Ricky, but that's what it's got to be. This offense has to come out swinging. The defense has to basically force Joe Flacco into turnovers, which they can do because the last 2 games, Flacco's thrown 2 picks apiece.
With that being said, what is your prediction? Raiders or Ravens?
I'm going to say Raiders. I think this is going to be a 35 kind of 20-point game. I think the Ravens they're going to be what they are on offense, and I think that the Raider offense comes out and just says, you know what, we're going to put more points on you in this one.
All right, Rick. That sounds good to me. I want to be 3-1. I want to continue to make that push for the playoffs. So that sounds great to me, Rick. All right, Rick, before we go, why don't you go ahead and let everybody know what's going on over there at the Most Valuable Podcast and where they can find you.
Yeah, right now you can catch all of our stuff on the easiest place is mostvaluablepodcasts.com, or you can check us out on YouTube, Most Valuable Podcasts. And right now we're in the full swing of football season. We've got college football, NFL, we're doing weekly previews, we're doing weekly picks, and we're just kind of getting into the groove of football season as we kind of venture through. And like you said earlier, we're approaching after this week that quarter point to the NFL season.
Yes, Rick. Make sure you guys check out these guys over at the Most Valuable Podcast. Rick, we really appreciate you coming onto the show. We can't wait to talk to you again. And once again, thank you for being a part of the show.
Oh, thank you guys for having me. I love being on Will to Win.
All right, now we're going to kick it back over to the LA studios, where Pete's going to do a segment called Key Notes on Derek Carr. Pete, back to you.
While some may say that our defense has been historically bad, there are some really good signs from our offense, and particularly from Derek Carr. As far as quarterbacks go, if you look at the first 3 weeks of the season, Derek Carr is a top 5 quarterback. And the way that we get to that number at this point is that Carr is either 4th or 5th in all 3 of the major categories that you want to be top 5 in to be considered a great quarterback in the NFL. Let's just take a look. If you look at his completion percentage, 66.9, that puts him 4th best behind only Eli Manning at 71, Matt Ryan at 70.9, and Matt Stafford at 67.5. Now, of course, there are other quarterbacks who have thrown the ball less, over 75 attempts. You look at guys like Alex Smith with a 66.9, Trevor Siemian 67%, and Phillip Rivers at 68.7. But if you take a look at his passer rating of 99.1, that's 5th best with only Matt Ryan at 119, Drew Brees at 105.1, and obviously that has something to do with our defense. Matt Stafford at 105, and then Carson Wentz at 103.8. Now, again, there are some guys with less attempts like Rivers, but once again, we're looking at between 75 and 100 throws. Look at his touchdown to interception ratio of 5-1. That puts him 4th best with only Carson Wentz at 5 interceptions and 0 touchdowns. Drew Brees, 8 interceptions and 1 touchdown. Matt Ryan, 7 interceptions and 1 touchdown. And again, you've got guys like Rivers, 5 interceptions, 0 touchdowns, and Aaron Rodgers, 7 interceptions and 1 touchdown with attempts above 75. Now, by the numbers, you can see that he's having an elite season at the start of the year. And once again, it is only 3 games into the season, and we have played against 2 pretty bad defenses ourselves. But again, the guys at the top of the list right now, your guys like Drew Brees, your guys like Matt Ryan, also put up almost 500 yards apiece against our defense and touchdowns as well in terms of what they've been able to do.
So looking at these particular numbers, we can see that going into week number 4, the fourth quarter of the season, if Derek Carr has at least a average game by what he's been doing so far, and again, this is going to be a bit of a tougher defense to do it against, if he has at least an average game at this point, he should still be in the top 5 among active quarterbacks in the NFL through the first quarter of the season. And that tells me that this Carr is elite. Well, all right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look at our pick'ems from last week. It looks like everybody missed the boat against the Patriots. We all had the Texans winning that game, and boy, were we wrong. Everybody thought Dallas was going to have an easy time last week, and they pretty much did against a struggling Bears football team. Raiders, I picked the Falcons, as did Watts Raider, but Jason and the Beast both picked the Saints, so they didn't quite come up, even though it was a very, very tight game in overtime. They weren't quite able to pull it out. And my score of 21-14 was closest to the actual score. Therefore, I also win that particular round. So once again, it looks like I came out at 3-1, a good week for me. The Oakland Knight at 1-3, Beast at 1-3, and Watts Raider, again, another good solid week at 2-2. All right, well, let's go ahead and take a look at the picks that we have this week, including tonight's game. It looks like everybody's picking Cincinnati to beat Miami. Miami has just really struggled thus far. Ryan Tannehill, just a lot of talent still on this Cincinnati football team. This is a very, very good football team going up against a struggling football team. I think we all agree that the Bengals are going to go ahead and pull this one out. If we take a look at the Sunday night game, Steelers, Kansas City Chiefs, this is going to be a good one. Now, myself, the Knight, and the Beast are all picking the Steelers, while Watts Raider is going with the Kansas City Chiefs. Not a sexy pick, but again, a solid pick. The Chiefs just keep on winning. In the Monday night game, Vikings against New York, gosh, I just don't know. I couldn't get up for this at all. I'm going to go ahead and pick the Vikings. No other reason than I'm just going to go ahead and pick the Vikings. They don't have a quarterback. The running back hasn't been playing very well. Adrian Peterson, obviously not doing very well. But I just don't see anything sexy about this Giants football team. They do have some good players, but for whatever reason, I'm going to go ahead and go with the Vikings. Jason is also going with the Vikings. Watts Raider going with the New York Jets. So Watts Raider this week, if he gets it right, he's got another big week coming here. But the Beast is also going with the Minnesota Vikings. And in terms of the game, I'm picking 24-14. I think it's going to be a tight game. Points are going to be harder to come by. But I think we're going to do better than we did against the Titans. So my pick right now, 24-14. Jason thinks it's just going to be an absolute blowout. I like the confidence. He's going in there guns blazing, 38-7. Amazing. He's pushing all his chips into the middle of the table. Watts Raider, 24-21. Again, it's going to be close between me and Watts for this particular game if it does come down to a 4-score game. And the Beast at 27-20. 27-20. So if it's between 27 and 38, it'll be Beast. If it's between 14 and 21 in terms of what Baltimore scores, it'll be between myself and Watts. And if it is in any way a blowout, then it will or should be the Oakland Knight. All right. Well, that's our picks for this week, folks. Well, folks, that's our show for this week. We hope you enjoyed this show as much as we enjoyed putting it together for you. Once again, we never like to end our shows without reminding you that we will be live on YouTube directly following the game. So once the game is over, probably about 15 to 20 minutes after the final play, we'll be hosting a live call-in show. The number is right here on the screen. So be sure to give us a call directly after the game, whether you're at the game or at home. Please don't hesitate to give us a call and tell us exactly what you think. So once again, we really do appreciate you watching. Please like and subscribe because that shows us that you do like what it is that we're doing for you. Until next week, One Nation, First Nation, Raider Nation.